The weekly sermons of 45th Street Baptist Church are now available as a podcast through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Do you know how powerful this is? Do you know what it means in your life? Or maybe I should ask the question, does it mean anything in your life? Until you learn how to study it, see what God is saying to you, you'll never really be able to fulfill your purpose. Come on and join us. Join us for 45 minutes of purpose here at 45th Street Baptist Church. I guarantee you, you'll come out thinking differently. And my prayer is, somewhere along the line, you'll find the purpose that God has for you. Come on in and join us.
Welcome to 45 Minutes of Purpose with Reverend Andra D. Sparks.
Once again, we're back with you. Good evening, everyone. It's great to see each of you today. Glad to be back in this space of learning and collaboration. Thank God for you. I'm excited about what the Lord will allow us to learn this evening. I'm also excited about um, this lesson because I believe it helps us to get better in managing ourselves and our emotions. Before we get started, I want to ask you to be in prayer for um, a few of our uh, family and friends. I'd ask you to be in prayer for members of our family, the Harper family, uh, happens to be our sister and brother-in-law, and the loss of his mother today, early this morning. On the day of love, they're experiencing significant loss, and so they don't live in Birmingham, but we still covet your prayers in that respect. So if you would ask them, they visited with us at 45th Street prior. So we ask you to pray for them and their comfort during this time of loss. And then we've had some other church members who have experienced some loss recently, and I wasn't at the church Sunday, but I'll ask you to be in prayer for the Dada family, Katrina Dada, Deacon Miss Katrina Dada, and the loss of her um, last week. Please be in prayer for that family as well. I'm also aware of some church members, some family members we've had who have been struggling with some other issues. And so I'm asking you if you would just lift up our family and friends so that they can know that we're caring about them. You don't have to know all the details in order to understand what's going on, but just make sure you ask the Lord to bless them. Amen. All right. Well, let's move forward with this Bible study. Go talk about it a little bit. I think you're going to love it. Tonight, we're going to talk about a topic that there's probably not a single person who can say they avoid it, and that is going to be the topic of anger. Anger. And specifically, we're going to talk about what to do when you feel like your back is against the wall. What to do when you feel like your back is against the wall. And that's a time when we feel like we are struggling, really struggling to maintain composure, to handle the circumstances as they're presented to us. But this psalm that we're going to deal with tonight gives us some guidance in how to deal with those circumstances. And the psalm I'm referring to is Psalm 79. Psalm 79. Psalm 79. If you would allow me to start out by reading it and kind of get us on track tonight. Psalm 79. And it reads, "O God, the nations have invaded your inheritance. They have defiled your holy temple. They have reduced Jerusalem to rubble. They have left the dead bodies of your servants as food for the birds of the sky, the flesh of your own people for the animals of the wild. They have poured out blood like water all around Jerusalem, and there is no one to bury the dead. We are objects of contempt to our neighbors, of scorn and derision to those around us. How long, Lord, will you be angry forever? How long will your jealousy burn like fire? Pour out your wrath on the nations that do not acknowledge you on the kingdoms that do not call on your name, for they have devoured Jacob and devastated his homeland. Do not hold against us the sins of past generations. May your mercy come quickly to meet us, for we are in desperate need. Help us, God our Savior, for the glory of your name. Deliver us and forgive our sins for your name's sake. Why should the nation say, where is their God? Before our eyes, make known among the nations that you avenge the outpoured blood of your servants. May the groans of the prisoners come before you with your strong arm. Preserve those condemned to die. Pay back into the laps of our neighbors seven times. Whew. The contempt they have hurled at you, Lord. Then we, your people, the sheep of your pasture, will praise you forever. From generation to generation, we will proclaim your praise. My Lord, what a prayer, what a song for us to delve into. What a song. This is a prayer to pray when you are feeling like your back is against the wall. It's a prayer, a psalm of Asaph. Asaph was a choir leader during that time, and he penned this. I can't imagine what kind of music would be put to this song, but it would have to be. Seems like it would have to be something that's foreboding the way the psalm reads. But it gives us a perfect backdrop on what to do when you think um, somebody's mistreated you and you feel like you don't have any recourse. I wish we were together because I could ask right now for a show of hands how many folk have ever felt like their back was against the wall. And I know the answer would go up. I mean, all the hands would go up. Everybody's felt that way in some form or fashion. So let me take some steam out of this right now and tell you that anger is natural. Anger is natural. There are some people who try to repress their anger, but it's to no avail. You can't ever completely repress anger. And I should tell you this, anger can be beneficial sometimes. All right. It can be beneficial. It's a God given emotion. It's potentially harmful, but it can be used constructively. We see it from the very beginning of the creation of man. Anger starts out in the very first family that we come into contact with, and that's Adam's and Eve's brood. We first see anger coming into play. We have to, however, learn as believers, as we walk this walk, we've got to learn how to deal with anger in a healthy and a constructive way. That's our mission. And so this psalm is going to give us some examples of how we can express our anger. Now, psychologists have been teaching us how to deal with anger for a long time. And the first thing you should know, and I think this is probably going to be really helpful to you to understand, anger is known as a secondary emotion, a secondary emotion. And that means that typically some other emotion precedes your anger. All right. Anger rises in response to some other emotion like hurt or fear or jealousy. Scientists, to be specific, neurobiologists tell us that our anger response is hardwired into our bodies. It's hardwired. There's something about us when we get anger. It is simply not an emotion that comes from our mind, but our bodies react to it. You know, you see red. Literally, your eyes can turn red when you're angry. You might start crying when you're angry, if you're that angry. You might start sweating when you're that angry. Your body gets tense. You have to, your heartbeat gets more rapid when you're angry. So many changes occur in your body, but it's always as a result of some other emotion preceding that anger response. Anger in and of itself is not bad. It's all the rest of the things that go with it that get us into trouble. Oh yeah, your blood pressure goes high when you get angry. Yeah, you lash out and say things that you didn't want to say or shouldn't have said. I'm not gonna say you didn't want to say that you shouldn't have said when you get angry. Yeah, the key to learning how to express anger without the key we got to learn tonight is to learn how to express anger without it being destructive. That's what we're working for. Yeah, and so I say it without it being destructive because I want you to know anger can be constructive. Sometimes it's after you get angry from losing, the shame, the embarrassment of losing makes you angry enough to go back and double down and figure out what you've done wrong. And it's that anger at your own performance that throws you into a place where you learn how to do things better. All right. Psalm 79 sheds light on anger and healthy ways to deal with it. How to be, let me say it this way, how to be angry and sin not. All right. It's known as a lament psalm. 79 is a lament psalm. In other words, something bad has happened, and the author is lamenting about what has happened. Just from the very way I say that, that tells you that it does not mean that something positive has happened. All right. That's not what's happening. No, no. Somebody's upset in this situation. Somebody needs some recourse in this situation. Somebody needs some help, and they're turning to the Lord to get that help. So the question is, why is it a lament? A lament is a passionate expression of sorrow. And there's a whole book in the Old Testament called Lamentations. All right. Something's gone wrong, and I'm wailing, I'm crying, I'm upset. Passionate expression of sorrow. Lord, this psalm says, do something. That's what this psalm is all about. They've been ugly to me, Lord. They're calling you out of your name. They're making us look like fools. They've run amok. They've torn up the city. They've torn up the temple. The place for your holy habitation is gone. Lord, I'm asking you to do something. There's a song we saying, do it for me right now. That's what this person, that's what Asaph is saying. He said, I'm looking around for you to step into this place. I expect you to show up and show out in this place, Lord. Do something to let them know that you're in charge. But what's interesting about this lament, about this psalm, is the way Asaph has written it. He's saying, either help me or hurt them. Do something. Do something for them. Help me, Lord, or hurt them. I need you to be in this space right now. I need them to know that ain't no God like you. Yeah. I need you to show them, Lord. And so, what points can we draw out of this song that helps us to be angry and sin not? First, you should know that we usually feel anger when we believe we've been wrong. All right. And when we believe we've been wronged by something, we want vindication. We need for the Lord, we need for somebody to help us get back. Help put me back in a space of right. And so the songwriter's anger in this instance comes from the fact that the Babylonians have come in and wronged him. Yeah. And so this anger is triggered because he feels as if the Israelites have been uh, unfairly treated by the Babylonians, where the Babylonians didn't have any reason to consider their feelings. They were at war. They were running amok on them. Now, let me tell you something about anger. You have the same reaction when you're angry, whether the situation is real or not. Real or not, whether it's actually happening or whether it's just your perception that it's happened. And your perception can be entirely wrong, but it doesn't change the fact that you are absolutely angry, and all of those physical responses come the same way. You can go off on somebody about something you perceive they did, only to come back later and realize they didn't do anything to you. This is why we got to learn how to handle our anger in such a way that we don't sin. You come outside the grocery store, you've been in there, it's been a long day already. All you needed was some milk and some bread. And you come out to your car and realize that as you're pulling up, it looks like the car that's pulling out right there has bumped into your car and dented it and is trying to leave. And so you immediately see red and start screaming for that person to stop. Only problem is the way that car is made, there's no way it could have done the damage that's been done to your car. But you don't see that immediately. All you do is start screaming at a person because they're driving a car and seem to be driving away without you getting any recompense or any action. It's only after the police officer comes and another person comes up and says, they didn't hit your car. Another car hit your car before this and pulled off. I was watching. Then you have the problem of still being upset because you've been wrong. The only problem is you, in your anger, have wronged someone else by accusing them. So anger puts us in a situation sometimes where we compound problems because we're not thinking rationally. And so you're in a difficult place there. Of course, the natural thing, the rational thing to do is to turn and apologize to the person you have falsely accused. Except you find it difficult to be apologizing to anyone under those circumstances because your car is still jacked up. That's why you got to be able to slow down, breathe, breathe, and be in control of the circumstances. In verse 12, look at this. The psalmist asked God to pour out his wrath on the Babylonians. Pour them out. They've come in here, and not only have they killed your people, God, they have destroyed almost a generation of people, and they have destroyed the place that's for you, destroyed the temple. Oh, the psalm Asaph is upset. When we're mad, we want people who have hurt us to experience what we're experiencing. There's a saying that hurt people hurt people. And this is true. That's what anger can lead you to. It doesn't have to be that way, but hurt people can hurt people. And watch this. The longer you allow the hurt to linger, the more hurt you can do to other people. Oh, yeah. Until you can get a handle on what it is that's sticking in your craw or eating away at you, you're going to continue hurting people. And you're going to hurt people around you who may be doing everything they can to help you. It's an out of control situation. Sometimes, a lot of times, it leads you to regret. Leads you to regret. And you should know that this regret puts people in a very awkward position because now, though they may not have done anything to you, you are now causing damage that you might and probably will regret afterward. Oh, yeah. It can be very, very dangerous. It's not unheard of to people to wrongly kill people because they got upset, because their anger was unchecked, and because the situation could not be diagnosed properly. And they'll actually do harm to other folks. Vigilante mobs come about because someone has perceived that some wrong has been done, and they get other people to start thinking and acting the way they believe things how to act, things have gone. Hundreds of men, maybe even thousands, have been lynched in the South for a perceived wrong. For a perceived wrong. Anger must be put in check, only to find out that the person who then becomes harmed or sometimes killed is completely innocent of anything. Emmett Till is a great example. A young boy who came in from Chicago to Money, Mississippi, and was killed, was lynched, was murdered, supposedly for whistling at a white woman, I should add. Now you know that element was in there. There was a story told by Chuck Colson. Chuck Colson is a rather famous street preacher. Um, he wrote a book called The Body. And in the book, he wrote of a church congregation in Maine that had become so divided in its discussions, so agitated in its committee meetings, that in one worship service in front of the communion table, the pastor and another parishioner or another member of the leadership actually got into a physical fight. So bad that the police had to be called to break them up. Now, this is in the middle of worship. Anger had boiled over to that extent that the police had to be called because a fist fight was going on. You got to know everyone had lost all sense of right and wrong at that point. A generation would be scarred behind that situation. I'm sure people would be leaving upset, not understanding how anything could get under that control, get out of control that way, and yet it happened. Nobody is immune to hurt feelings. Now, we're not gonna sit here and say that somebody hurt you, you feel that hurt. All right. Not only that, they may not actually hurt you. They may just want to hurt you. That's a problem too. You can get angry at that. When you find out that people mean you no good and want to do harm to you, that's a problem too. And so in this psalmist is trying to tell us it's out of his control. I can't handle this right now, Lord. I need you to handle it. Back in the verse, he said, he asked the question, why should the nations, why should these heathens sit here and taunt and ask the question, where is your God? They are making a mockery of you, Lord. They're taunting us. When we're angry, it's amazing how small things that people can say. The nations taunting God did no harm to God. But from the perspective of Asaph, they were damaging his reputation. And this made him angry. And that's why he wanted to hurt those who he perceived were hurting him. We also want to, and this is crucial, I think we lose sight of this sometimes. We want to prove that we're right. We're right. Some people will go to no lengths just to prove that they're right. Yeah. Sometimes it's not even about right. Sometimes people simply want to be heard and don't feel like they're being heard. And that's important too. People can get so angry that they will respond with physical action when they believe nothing else is getting attention. That spawned a number of movements in our country. Yeah. Protests, I've been told, is the voice of the unheard. When people feel that they have not been heard about something, they will take action to make sure people are listening to them. So I'm just going to ask you right now, what kind of things make you angry? What kind of things make you angry? What situations just send the flag right up the pole for you? Somebody in your life, the one that sets you off on a regular basis, it doesn't matter what they say or how they do things. They just get on my nerve, just on my reserve nerve. It don't matter what they say. It seems like they're always saying something to needle me. Well, one thing I can tell you today is you absolutely can't control anything they say. You cannot, but you can control how you respond under those circumstances. And if you allow them to get under your skin every time they say something and they really are trying to do harm to you, well, they already know what they got to do to get to you. You've just given them the ammunition to keep you strung out. You've got to figure out how to deal with that circumstance without being angry. You got to figure out how to keep your emotions in check. That's important. It offended the psalmist in verse 10 that the heathens kept taunting them about where was God. It also offended him. And he wrote in verse 12, he said, pay back into the laps of our neighbors 7 times the contempt they've hurled at us. In other words, all the jokes and things they talked about, give them what they've been talking about 7 times, God. It brings back to the old saying, and I think sometimes this is untrue. So sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never hurt me. I disagree with that. Words absolutely hurt, particularly coming from certain people. Sometimes words can be cruel and demeaning, and you can never stop hearing those words. Sometimes people say things in such a demeaning way. There are some children who've been scarred almost for life by some things that some ill-intentioned adults have said to them. So that's a lie that sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never help me. Hurt me. That's not true. Words can hurt. You have to be a steward of the words, that a good steward of the words that come out of your mouth, or you might inflict some damage on someone that can have a lasting effect. Words from a courtroom witness stand can hurt. Words from a courthouse witness stand can get somebody put in jail for the rest of their lives. Words can help you. Words can help you, and words can hurt you. Just like someone can put in a good reference about you, your name and character, that same mouth can do damage to your name and character and reputation. And when people perceive that they've been placed in that situation, my Lord, they want something to be done. And I got news for you. Sometimes there's nothing to be done, and that is frustrating. That's frustrating. Yeah. Said people talk about me and call me everything but what? A child of God. Whatever was on the list they say I am, they call me all that, but they didn't say I know the Lord. Well, they didn't say it, but you got to show them you do. Therein comes the strength that comes with relationship with him. We got to learn how to express our anger to the Lord and let him dispel that anger, redirect that anger in prayer. It's almost impossible to stay angry at somebody that you pray for regularly. Almost impossible. I can't say without a doubt that you can't do it, but it takes an extra special something to sincerely pray for somebody, and yet stay mad at them. I don't understand how that could happen. If we don't admit our anger, though, we're never going to make the situation better. And that becomes the problem because too often we internalize anger. People continue to ask you, they can see it all over you. If you're like me, it's hard sometimes to hide emotions. And people can see when you are out of kilter. They know what you look like when you're laughing and jovial, and likewise, they know what you look like when you're angry and upset. And it's not just a facial expression, it's the whole countenance of your body. Uh, when you continue to tell people that there's nothing going on, and yet they can see it all over you, all over how you carry yourself, internalizing that anger does not help anyone. It impacts negatively on relationships. And so learning how to constructively discuss those things that upset you is going to benefit not only you from a physical perspective and a relationship perspective, it's going to benefit those around you. Internalized anger can lead to a number of things. It can lead to high blood pressure and heart problems. It can also lead to internalized anger can lead to depression. Physical sickness can come from it. Yeah. Our experience of anger is a physiological response to an emotion that we're experiencing. So the experience itself is morally neutral. You got to figure out what the underlying problem is in order to get better. You can take a container of vinegar and put it in a cup, and there's no problem with it. You can take some baking soda and put it in a cup, and there's nothing wrong with it. But when you mix the baking soda and the vinegar together, you're going to have an explosive situation. Apart, they're benign. You can use them for their intended purpose, no problem. But when you put those two things together, yeah, when you put hurt feelings and anger together, an explosion can occur. You can find yourself in a situation that you can't easily get yourself out of. If you're mad, say you're mad. If you're upset with somebody, tell them you're upset with them. Stop toting that around in your emotional baggage. Stop creating migraines for yourself when all you have to do is be truthful. Now, maybe sometimes you don't say it because you haven't figured out how to put it properly into words. Ask the Lord to help you how to do that. Help you learn how to do that. To be able to say things when they're bothering you. To be able to talk to folk about that. And ask Him to help you to be able to do it with clarity. It can be with passion, but also with clarity. You got to release that bitterness. You got to, because the bitterness is corrosive. The bitterness is the infection that's killing you. The anger is the corrosion that's hurting you. The anger, you can walk around for years mad at somebody and they don't even know. They don't even know it. They don't even know you're mad at them. And you spent so much energy. You see them and kiss your teeth. They don't even know that's happening. They come up to you and speak to you. They don't even know you can't stand them. They don't even know that it's perceived that you've done something to them. They don't even know that they are number one on your can't stand list. Because the anger that's going on is not hurting them, it's hurting you. And in fact, you might be surprised to know that if you ever gave voice to them about the anger, you've been upset about something that was never true in the first place. Or you've been upset about something that they had no idea that they had done. And as soon as they perceive that you're in that space, they beg your forgiveness mightily because they never would have intended or thought that you were upset about anything. And so, who's been harmed when you go year after year or being angry at somebody? Let it go. Let it go. Blow it away. If you got a hard time admitting you're angry, that problem is yours to learn how to deal with. Learn how to release that so you can be better. There's some symptoms of anger that don't always show. Some people just have what's called a flat effect in their resting face. You can't tell if they're upset. You can't tell if they're happy. You can't tell. That doesn't mean they're not. There may be other symptoms they have, like maybe being irritable or again, your heart may be racing, maybe your stomach is churning, upset stomach. Uh, all of these things come about and they show you that you're having issues with anger. Another point you got to understand, uh, in addition to dealing with your anger and first admitting that you're angry, that's crucial now. You got to be able to do it. Is you got to be able to seek forgiveness. Seek forgiveness for your own role in situations. So if you've wronged somebody, then you got to be man or woman enough to tell them I was wrong. I was wrong. That's some hard words. Three hard words. Three groups. There groups of words seem like they come in threes that are really, really hard for people to say. All right. I love you is one of them. It's hard for people to say that. I love you. I was wrong is another. I am guilty is another. Takes a lot of courage for some reason to say those things. But we have got to be mature enough to learn how to say those things and mean it when we say it. Yeah, I am sorry. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Another is, please forgive me. Please forgive me. There's another one that I want you to learn how to say that I think helps you when you can't say, I was wrong. I am guilty. Please forgive me. Learn how to say this. Lord, help me. Lord, help me. Use those three words. Lord, help me. Lord, strengthen me. You got to learn how to say those things in order to get better. Seek forgiveness for your role. Lord, help me. Lord, please strengthen me in this place. Please. When you're mad, learn how to take time to assess how you may have contributed to the circumstances. This is a very difficult thing to do because we judge other people on their actions and we judge ourselves on our intentions. And that's a hard thing. I never intended to hurt anybody, but that doesn't mean you didn't. I never intended to say something that caused you hurt. That doesn't mean you didn't. I never intended to do you wrong. That doesn't mean you didn't. Learn how to evaluate the circumstances so that you, my friend, can do better and be better. We also need to seek forgiveness for our role as early as possible to save ourselves from continuing hurt and harm in our own lives. And do this for me as well as we get ready to get out of here. Don't be so quick. Don't be so quick to point the finger at other people before you assess a situation. Don't be so quick to call somebody out for something because you would be so upset if people didn't give you the benefit of the doubt. Don't always put negative on other people's actions because that can cause people to be falsely accused and they'll be upset just like you would have been. And then the last point I want to teach you in this, I want to talk to you about in this, and I think you understand that we can control our anger if we want to. I want you to understand that this lesson is as practical as it comes when it comes to managing our emotions. And I want you to know that when you feel angry, you've been wrong, it's normal for you to want to get some straightening out in that situation, or is normal to want vindication. But what you got to learn, what you got to understand is you got to first admit when you're angry. You got to first admit that. That's important. Not only that, you got to be willing to admit you're wrong in the situation, not your role in the situation. If it's right or wrong, you got to be willing to admit your place in that scenario because it may not all be on the other person. And then the last one is this, and it has more to do with Lord help me. It's the headline for that. It's the title of that, and it is Leave Room for God to Work. Leave room for God to work. All right. It's hard for us to pray this psalm because it seems it's vengeful. All right. It's a vengeful psalm. In light of the teachings of Jesus Christ, it seems particularly hard. It would seem to be what we call a precatory prayer, which means we're almost wishing curses on people or raining down judgment on people. Yeah, that's what Asaph is doing. He says, sick them, Lord, get them, go get them. It's almost cursing them. When I say curse, I don't mean using profanity. I mean putting a curse on them. Yeah. And so by praying for the destruction of other people, maybe that's how we got to learn instead to love them. Yeah, you're praying for, but you're praying for the destruction. Wonder what happens if you can get mature enough, become mature enough to pray instead for them. For them. All right. If you learn how to pray, Lord, fix it. Lord, straighten it out. Lord, you deal with it. When you can turn it over to the Lord and put it in his hands, when you get to that place, then maybe you're growing in grace. You're growing in grace when you can get to that place. By expressing our anger, a lot of times we purge ourselves of the resentment that we have simply by getting it out, by saying it. When we get ourselves in that place where we freed ourselves of the resentment, that opens up the possibility that we can love somebody again, even somebody that's done wrong to us, when we stop being resentful. God can be trusted to deal with the circumstances and deal with your protection. That's what he does. God can deal with our rage and he can deal with the circumstance. All right. But God's not going to step in your way when you intent on doing it your way. Then you don't need him. You got to be able to turn it over to him. Remember now, we're talking about the same God who's loving. We're talking about the same God who can count the hairs on your head. We're talking about the same God who pays attention to the sparrow. We're talking about the same God who says that not a tear that we shed is going to be wasted. This is the God we're talking about. If he can do all those things, my friend, then certainly if you learn how to turn things over to him. As the songwriter said, I turned it over to the Lord and he worked it out. Jesus can work it out. If you let him, he can work it out. Learn how to deal with your anger by growing and dealing with the Lord. Get it off you and turn it over to the Lord. When you feel like your back is against the wall, ask the Lord to help you get through that situation. Now, I know that seems really simple, but try it. Try it and see how it works. I've enjoyed talking to you tonight. I hope that something that has been said is going to be beneficial to you. I'm looking forward to seeing you this Sunday at 7600 Division Avenue. I'm also looking forward, if you can't make it to our physical location, to seeing you on our streaming service or in the cyber sanctuary, whichever the system is you're going to be using, either in person or online. I'm looking forward to fellowshipping with you and sharing with you. Until then, please be prayerful. Please be careful. God bless you and take care.